Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of TBR. I'm George Binns, and if you recall, we had a discussion a couple of weeks back about critical thinking with Kevin O'Reilly. Kevin, welcome again.
Thank you.
And the previous show was an introduction to how you teach critical thinking as part of a history program. And Kevin is an author of, how many books is it now?
30.
30 books, which are essentially lesson plans on a topic. So there's several lesson plans to each book.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the ingredients in your program is sort of a test of whether critical thinking is working or not, is conspiracies.
Right.
And I looked it up in the dictionary to find out what risk conspiracy really is. At least according to them, it's some sort of secret program that's somewhat nefarious.
Right.
And we were talking the last time about some of the books that you had used to develop a particular set of plans on the Armada. And I always remember from Garrett Mattingly's book, one of the discussions they got into with the King of Spain and his entourage was, what are we going to do about us, a Catholic country, attacking Protestant England while we got a Protestant France on our back door because the Huguenots had taken over. And they kicked it around for a while and decided, we'll just assassinate the King of France, which is what they did. So I guess that qualifies as a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because they didn't tell him about it. It was a secret to him.
He was the last to know.
Yeah. So aside from that one, what other ones do you use?
Well, I thought this would be really interesting to have students study. So on my website, I have 61 conspiracies in U.S. history. Maybe someday I'll get the effort to do more in world history. But for now, I did it's 13 lessons, and there's 4 or 5 conspiracies in each lesson. So it comes out to about 61, I think, that I have. And one point I want to emphasize is conspiracy theories are not uniformly wrong. Some of them are true and some of them are not true. John Wilkes Booth really was part of a conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln.
Yeah.
So when you put yourself in the shoes of people trying to deal with conspiracy theories, they have to decide, well, is this true? Could it be true? Is there evidence about it? So I think it's important to put students in the shoes of people trying to decide if a conspiracy really is accurate. And I feel like history is a good way to do this for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you have a conspiracy theory today, one that's current, people are more emotionally involved in it. And I think I can give you an example of that. And secondly, we know how some of these conspiracy theories came out. Like they really didn't do, or they did do, and we now know that this or that. And when I say no, I don't mean like no as in a court case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a historical judgment. And that's how we do things with as citizens. We have to make judgments about, not that we're going to know for sure. So the goals here are to get students to analyze the conspiracy theories they hear according to some common sense guidelines, and to look for evidence. Is there evidence to support this? And if we accomplish that, I think we'll have people who are more judicious in how they think about conspiracies.
Well, you get down to the point of the recent one is, did we really land on the moon? And that one's gone around for a number of years, and it won't die. It keeps coming back. and yet they brought back rocks and all that sort of stuff. Well, it's all fake.
Yeah.
And
That's one of the ones in the 1960s lesson.
yeah,
So
and
students should deal with it.
right now we're sort of dealing in one of what's going on with Iran and Israel. And did the bombs really take out the nuclear facilities or not? And you get into this problem, I think, that people are trying to unravel what really happened.
Right.
And it's not something that's abstracted, no, way back when they did this, not, it ain't true anymore. But it's a current technique you've got to develop.
Right. And if you can do it where you're not as emotionally involved, you can be more analytical when you get the ones today. So for your audience, I'm going to throw out a couple of conspiracy theories that are contemporary. And what I want you, the audience, and you, George, to think about is your reaction when you hear it.
Yeah.
Is there any emotion in like, oh, that couldn't be true, or, whoa, what? Of course it's true, that sort of thing. Okay, so one is the COVID-19 vaccines have chips in them for mind control. And just think about how you reacted to that. And then second one is President Trump conspired with others to undo the 2020 election. So if your blood pressure went up a little bit with either one of these, that's why it's so difficult to sort out these conspiracy theories. But if we do one on the War of 1812, students don't give a care about that, and they can actually analyze the conspiracy. And that's really what I think history can provide for us. We always say, well, history is 20/20 hindsight. Well, here it's a good thing, because we can look back and see how those conspiracies actually worked out. So I brought some conspiracies with me. I'm not part of the, well, maybe I am, to have you think about. And this first one, I think you probably know. So if we have that one up on the screen.
Push the button.
Well, it's on it now. So it's this one.
Oh, okay.
Former Vice President Aaron Burr has conspired to break up the United States by forming a separate country in the West. He's a traitor and should be punished. So would you say it's definitely true, probably true, 50-50, probably not, definitely not?
I think it's probably not.
Probably not, okay. So what I have students do, and this is to give you the idea of how I deal with this. So here we've got, this is from a researcher, a conspiracy detection kit. So number one, without convincing evidence, conspiracy theory is less likely to be true. We don't see any evidence yet, so we don't know. A conspiracy theory involving super powerful people is less likely to be true. I don't think Aaron Burr is super powerful, so probably not. That doesn't apply. The more elements involved, the more people involved, the less likely a conspiracy theory is to be true. That one applies here. Allegedly, about 1,000 soldiers were involved in this possible conspiracy. I can't think of his name. I'll come back to that. The larger the conspiracy, the less likely it's to be true. So if they're trying to take over the world, that's less likely. If a conspiracy theory cannot be falsified, that's less likely to be true. This could be falsified, so we need to look at that. And if a conspiracy theory doesn't line up with the way the world normally works, it's less likely to be true. Okay.
Well, when you get down to that fourth one about world domination, there's a big to-do about Davos and all the big money that shows up there and how they're going to take over the world. So I think that one would challenge your fourth.
Right. Okay. And that one. So in this one with Aaron Burr, now that you've looked at these guidelines, do you think it's? Do you still think it's not likely to be true?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to look at evidence. I remember the number 3, the more elements involved. Ben Franklin said, a conspiracy can be held, a secret can be held if there are only 3 people involved and one of them is dead. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to keep a conspiracy quiet. Okay, so here's some of the evidence, and it's lengthy. I tried to pick ones where there's not a lot of information to read. But in 1804, a British diplomat in the U.S. sent a note to British Foreign Office, quote, "I've just received an offer from Mr. Burr, the actual Vice President of the U.S., to lend assistance to His Majesty's government in any manner in which they may think fit to employ him, particularly in endeavoring to effect the separation of the western part of the United States from that which lies between the Atlantic and the mountains in its whole extent," unquote. So that's one piece of evidence. Second, Naval Commander Thomas Truxtun said that Burr asked him to lead a naval exhibition to attack Mexico and told Truxtun that the U.S. government did not know about his plans to attack. Burr said that he intended to set up a government independent of the U.S. He meaning Burr.
Yeah.
Okay, George Morgan said that Aaron Burr told him in 1806, quote, "In less than 5 years, you, the western part of the United States, will be totally divided from the Atlantic states. With 500 men from New York could be taken. With 200, Congress should be driven in the Potomac River." Now, I know some people would like to drive Congress into the river, but the question here is, was he part of a conspiracy? In 1806, Burr sent a coded letter to General Wilkinson in which he said he had obtained funding and started assembling an army in Ohio. He had naval protection from England, and final orders are given to my friends and followers. Burr said that he would be head of the new country and Wilkinson would be second in command. All right, now we've looked at the evidence. Let's go back up. Now, let's go all the way up. Now that you've seen evidence and you've looked at the guidelines, do you think it's definitely true that Burr was part of a conspiracy? Probably true, 50-50, probably not, or definitely not?
It's probably true.
Probably true.
Yeah.
So look
I'm
what happened.
That all this evidence is real stuff.
Right.
That you can document somehow or other.
Okay, and that's really important, and that would be the next step. I did this very simply, but you're correct, and anybody should be saying, whoa, where'd the evidence come from? And then you look at the reliability of those sources. Actually, in this one, some of it really is quite laid out. It's a British diplomat and a naval commander, and the last one, the coded letter, it's really interesting because he encoded it, and they were able to decode it, which is one of my sons was involved in. You're right. So it's a good question. Probably historians, but I think they actually knew at the time, but I don't know the details. Remember, what we're trying to do is get students to encounter these and then get them to think in more deep ways, not explore down to the depths, which I did in the Lusitania one. Was really in detail. Okay, so again, the goal is to get students to look at evidence or to ask about evidence. Okay, this one is lengthier here, but the evidence is shorter. So, Southern political leaders met and plotted to kill at least 4 presidents in the decades before the Civil War. Southern Senator John C. Calhoun hired a deranged man to shoot President Jackson, but the gun misfired. President Harrison died after he was poisoned by arsenic. Then Southerners used arsenic to kill President Taylor after he opposed the expansion of slavery into Cuba. Finally, Southerners poisoned the sugar cubes, not loose sugar, at a restaurant visited by President Buchanan. The president survived, but 38 others died of poisoning. Northerners drank tea with cubed sugar, while Southerners were spared because they drank coffee with loose sugar. What do you think of that one? Definitely true. This is just off the top of your head, initial reaction. Probably true, 50-50, probably not, definitely not.
That one sounds good. Probably true.
Probably true. Okay, so if we go to the guidelines, and number 2 might be involved. These are super powerful people. So that makes, if those are involved, less likely to be true. Okay, more elements involved. Number 3, what do you think? Does that apply here? So there are lots of people involved.
There's lots of people involved, but it looks like, according to the story, that there were a lot of presidents they wanted to get rid of for various reasons. And each one of them, I guess, knowing a little bit about some of these presidents, like Jackson was fighting with the Indians all the time and a few other things, it sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right. I don't know if any of these other ones apply. If it can't be falsified, it could be falsified. So that doesn't apply. If it doesn't line up the way.
What do you mean by could be falsified?
Well, if you say, actually, the next one would
Okay.
so I'll come back to that. Remember your question, because it's a good one. How about the last one? If a conspiracy theory doesn't line up with the way the world normally works, then it's likely to be true, less likely to be true. Is it normal for people to be poisoning and assassinating a whole string of presidents?
In the case of the issue about slavery, which is this behind
Right.
all of this.
Right, that's
all
right.
this, that's been an ongoing free-for-all since the Constitution was written,
Right.
or since the Declaration of Independence was written. So it's been an ongoing battle. So I would imagine that, yeah, they're still fighting it, and they didn't quit. And it wasn't until Lincoln was elected that the fit hit the shan and the war started.
Okay. All right. Is it normal for people to be poisoning leaders and kill a bunch of them? Not one, but 4 or 5. Is that something that normally
Well,
happens?
there's been several presidents that known have been assassinated or shot.
Right?
So it's not unlikely that somebody would be trying to do it much earlier than we were
Okay.
used
All right.
to.
So let's go back to do you think it's definitely true, probably true?
It's
50?
probably true, yeah.
Okay.
Again, the point you make that there's a whole bunch of these conspiracies, and I have a problem trying to say that you can start a conspiracy with the first one, way to start with Jackson,
Yep.
and continue that along without somebody catching on.
Right.
And so
Okay.
that bothers me that it ran for so long without anybody catching on.
Right, okay, and that would be number 3. So you have more elements. The more complicated it gets, the more difficult it is to keep it. Okay, how are we doing on time?
Doing fine.
Okay, all right, so here's evidence. A month before the assassination attempt on President Jackson, John C. Calhoun was the leader, made a speech in which he said in a roundabout way that maybe someone should kill President Jackson. The assassin, Richard Lawrence, was found to be insane and confined to an insane asylum for the rest of his life. Historians believe President Harrison died of pneumonia, not arsenic poisoning. President Taylor's body, because of this, they dug it up. In 1991, an autopsy performed that showed that it was not poisoned. President-elect Buchanan was not in Washington when the alleged poisoning at the National Hotel took place. He wasn't even there.
Okay.
Historians believe the cause of the people dying in the National Hotel was intestinal illnesses. The plumbing wasn't great in these hotels. There were previous outbreaks of intestinal illnesses in Washington hotels in January and February 1857. So this was right around that time. It was a couple months before, including the National Hotel, due possibly to poor plumbing. And one of the people who died at the National Hotel was a Southerner. Okay, so now if we go back, what do you think now? Now you've seen some evidence.
Yeah, it's probably false.
Good. Okay, so this is what I'm hoping happens in a classroom. Okay, if we have time. Oh, look at this. We got time here, George. This is great. Okay, let's do, okay, that one we did. All right, and now we're going to do one that I think this conspiracy theory goes around, is pretty popular. American presidents elected in years ending in 0 at 20-year intervals starting in 1840, have died in office. That is 1840, 1860, 1880, 1900, 1920, 40, and 60. This curse of Tecumseh, an Indian leader in the early 1800s, was started by Tecumseh's, actually his half-brother, as revenge against white settlers and soldiers. What do you think?
Phony as a $3 bill.
Phony, so you're going with definitely not true.
Yes.
Okay. And if we look at the guidelines, there's, without convincing evidence, and we'll look at it, it has less likely to be true. If you go to number 5, if a conspiracy theory cannot be falsified. So suppose we say, wait a minute, so-and-so died for another reason. Say, yeah, but that doesn't say anything about the curse. There's no evidence that could actually disprove this.
Yeah.
So this is the answer to your question from before. And normally, it doesn't line up with the way the world normally works, in my opinion, because we don't have like curses that cause, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 presidents to die in office. Okay. Do you have any questions about this one?
Well, it seems phony as a $3 bill, like I said, and I would seriously doubt that you could have some sort of mechanism to every 20 years knock off a president.
Okay.
Don't see how you can make it happen.
Okay. All right.
Because they all died from different causes.
That's one of the pieces of evidence. So there's no evidence, no record of Tecumseh, his half-brother, or any other Indian proclaiming the curse. There's no evidence the curse caused these deaths, which is your point.
Yeah.
Look, how would that happen? In the 1930s, the company Ripley's, believe it or not, publicized the curse of Tecumseh. The company has a chain of museums, book series, TV programs, merchandise, and bizarre, on strange and bizarre events, such as a person who swallowed light bulbs whole and a mummy shrunken to 6 inches in height. The seven presidents on here died for different reasons, as you mentioned. 4 were assassinated, while 3 died from natural causes. And the presidents elected in 1980, 2000, and 2020 did not die in office.
Yeah.
So there's actually some evidence against. Okay, so I have one more, but I don't know if you want to do that one or not.
Well, I think that gets. I think you got the point across.
Right.
That,
Okay.
And in this day and age, something like this, the Tecumseh thing, that stretches over so many years, that stretches your imagination to how could you make that happen?
Right.
And how could you set up an organization that would continually come out of the woodwork every 20 years and go assassinate or do in a president, right? Assuming, even if they all got assassinated.
Right.
I think
Which they didn't.
which they didn't. But even if they all did get assassinated, I would assume that they got assassinated for different causes, for different reasons. And the cause and effect thing just doesn't tie together.
Which is what we're hoping to do with students,
Yeah.
to think about cause and effect,
Yeah.
and to think about evidence. So if you're, as a citizen, you read something online or in the newspaper or see something on TV, you get this short conspiracy theory, and you have to hopefully say, well, wait a minute, I'd like to see what the evidence is for this.
Yeah.
And to back off and not say, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah.
This is exciting. So that's the hope. The goal is to get students to slow down and think about what kind of evidence did the person have to make this conspiracy theory.
Well, I think it comes down to the current news cycle that we're in, where you've got to have an instant answer by 6 o'clock, and it's got to be something spectacular, because you get into this whole idea of it leads, that drives what appears on TV or the radio or in the newspapers. So I think there's more fabrication.
So that's a good point. So online, it's the number of clicks. So if we get more eyeballs,
Yeah.
then we get more higher advertising rates for
Yeah.
people on there, and so to make it more sensational is a way to make money.
Yeah.
And they're not vetted, and anybody can put anything on there. So I think that that's important. One of the questions people have had, because I've done these before, is, well, are there more? Do we have more conspiracy theories today? And the research on this is actually mixed. Some studies say, no, it's about the same, and some say, no, it's increased. But one thing has really made it, it makes the conspiracy theory spread further and more quickly, is social media. They go and there's a theory, and then it goes to another one, and it just goes very rapidly.
Well, you get into this game of can you top this?
Right.
Well, somebody says, well, maybe the Supreme Court didn't go along with it. Next thing you know, you've got somebody in Congress trying to stack the Supreme Court or some other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And these things keep growing because the next story has got to be more spectacular, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
to get the clicks.
Right.
And if it's the same old, oh, yeah, I saw that the other day. I bypassed that one. So, again, I think there's a lot of thought going around about how the fact that we do have the social media, that more information is getting out and more good stuff shows up.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, because of the financing system where it's supposedly free, you're just paying for it in clicks that you don't recognize.
Mm-hmm.
That drives. There's a couple of websites that I follow. Pinterest is one of them, and they seem to have a scheme that if you pick a certain subject, the next time the page comes up, it's got a few more issues on it in that subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten to the point where I've gotten a whole page of nothing but stuff I'm interested in. So they're reading my mind.
Uh-huh.
So,
They're reading all of our minds.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing. One way to do this is to try and regulate the media. But the simplest thing to do, and in my opinion the best thing, is to train students to be more critical. Then they can go out and sort these things out.
It's the students, the parents, and everybody involved.
Right, it's us too.
It's not, yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And this is a subject I think we should kick around again. And again, if you have any questions or comments, my email address shows up at the credits at the beginning and the end. And if you have a longer comment, there's always room for you here at the table. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.